Welcome back, everyone. So I hope that I am seeing you for the ninth time. And that means that you've gone through the past 8 weeks as we've moved you from ideation and getting in relationship with a big vision for your business to moving that into processes, customer flows, and understanding the process and infrastructure you're creating as well as your business model. And we've been talking about processes a lot for the past 3 weeks, and we're going to keep that going and double click on that on today's session. So, today we get to step into the part of your founder journey where you stop carrying the business on your back and you start letting your systems carry the weight with you. So, this session, right, is really about being delegation ready. It's about turning the repetitive parts of your job into clear, teachable, repeatable workflows that someone else can execute confidently. So, if you have ever thought in your founder process, it's faster if I just do it myself, or no one else does it the way I do it, or delegation always ends with me fixing something. This session is going to shift the way you design your work. And the reason this is important for your founder lock in is because delegation is not about giving away tasks, it's about engineering clarity. So today I'm going to show you how to do exactly that with SOPs and playbooks that actually get used, actually drive outcomes, and actually scale your impact. Now, for anyone new, let me ground you in who we are and why we teach this work. Copper and Vine is a strategy and systems design studio. What we build is clarity, clarity that scales, clarity that protects your time, and clarity that prepares you for sustainable growth. We work at the intersection of people, process, and technology. And we do that because delegation isn't just a task handoff, it's an operational transformation. So, our approach is founder centered, outcome driven, and compliance first because we believe that speed means nothing if you can't sustain it ethically, securely, and with a team you want to keep. So if you'd like access to our worksheets or upcoming workshops or our founder resource hub, just scan that QR code on the slide, and we look forward to getting in contact with you. And for those meeting me for the first time, I'm Rakia Finley. I'm a technologist, a coalition architect, and someone with over 20 years of experience turning vision into operational infrastructure. So my work has spanned from youth protection and government innovation to digital health, venture-backed SaaS, and high-growth service companies. And I want you to hear this clearly about my journey. Every founder I've supported who scaled sustainably had one thing in common. Their decision making became teachable. So, what I'm teaching you today is not theory. It's going to be the same structure I use with my startups preparing for investment, with founders moving from solo to team, and with enterprise teams where misalignment cost millions. Now, the way you hand off work determines how fast you grow and how well your team can support you. So, today I'm going to help you make that handoff not just possible, but powerful. So, before we get into the mechanics of today's blueprint, I want to ground us in a real world example. Our Turn is a wellness technology platform built by our team at Copper and Vine. Now, when we built Our Turn's operational foundation, we didn't start with automation. We started with documenting the exact path users needed to follow, the decision points that mattered, and the quality standards that must never be compromised. So, in other words, we built a delivery system blueprint. And inside of it were the SOPs and playbooks that made delegation possible. The result of that is our term can onboard 1,000 users every week with 0 support tickets. Not because there is a massive team behind it, but because the system teaches itself. That's what SOPs actually do. They transform your expertise into infrastructure. And that's exactly what we're going to build together today. So by this point in our series, you've architected your business model. You've validated your customer and you've clarified your offer. That's the beautiful part. You've done the good work. But now we're going to step into the critical part. And that's ensuring what you build can deliver repeatedly, reliably, and without relying on heroics. So this is the moment in your founder journey where the business shifts from idea to infrastructure, because the bridge between idea and impact is not your passion, remember. It's not your hustle. It's the system underneath the work. So your customer is not just buying your solution, they're buying the experience of receiving it. And today we're going to take everything that lives in your head, everything only you know how to do, and we're going to turn that into a documented, teachable, repeatable system. So this is the work that makes delegation possible. This is the work that makes growth sustainable. Okay. So as just a reminder, as what we've been learning, right? The most important truth in a founder is growth doesn't break your business, it breaks the part built by hustle, right? So hustle is great for getting started. It gives you speed, flexibility, it gives you those survival instincts, but hustle has a shelf life. And the moment you begin to scale, hustle becomes a liability. So the shortcuts you took to move fast, the undocumented processes that just live in your head, the scrappiness that carried you early on, all of that is going to become a fault line between your startup and your scalability. So when founders come to me and they say, I'm doing everything right, but something still feels fragile, this is usually why, right? It's not because the founder is broken, it's because the systems weren't designed for that next level. Okay, so we want to rebuild those systems. So before we can talk about SOPs and delegation, we have to anchor ourselves in the bigger picture, the delivery system blueprint. The delivery system blueprint is the full map of how your business delivers value. So it captures every step in your customer journey. Who does what? What tools support each step? What happens automatically versus manually? And exactly where quality is protected. So if your workflow lives only in your mind, your Slack messages, or just your habits, your day to day, that is not a blueprint. That's a bottleneck waiting to happen. So the blueprint makes the work visible. And once it's visible, you can teach it, you can delegate it, you can automate it. And my favorite is you can improve on it. This is the foundation of your SOPs, your standard operating procedure. And that's meant to it's meant to be something that you get to plug into. So without a blueprint, SOPs become isolated documents. With a blueprint, they become part of a system. So if we zoom in, right, if the blueprint is the map, the SOP, the standard operating procedure, is the road, the exact path someone follows to get a repeatable outcome. So an SOP is not just steps. It includes decision points. It includes the if this, then that. It includes required tools, the quality checks, the data captured, and the success criteria. So an SOP isn't meant to document what you do. It's meant to document what works. So anyone, even your newest or least technical team member, can deliver the same outcome with confidence. So this is where delegation becomes real, because the moment your work becomes teachable, it becomes scalable. So when you're building SOPs or playbooks, consistency doesn't happen by accident anymore. Consistency is engineered through that playbook, and it's seen through five specific components. So the first component is process. It's the exact steps. That process is steps that are clear enough that a brand new hire could follow. Second to that is ownership. Who does what? So most breakdowns in a growing business aren't failure of effort. They tend to be failures of clarity, of not only what's supposed to be done, but who's supposed to be doing it and when. Third to that is tools. So what systems support the work? Tools reduce friction. SOPs reduce confusion. You need both. You need both tools and SOPs. Fourth is quality gates. So where excellence is checked. So these are guardrails. They're meant to ensure your expectations are no longer assumed, but that they're engineered. And then fifth of that is our data flow. What gets captured and why? Because what isn't measured can't be improved upon, and we're talking about a scalable and improvable company. So when we have these five elements present, our SOPs stop being a document and they become the spine of a predictable, scalable system. So most SOPs fail not because people don't want to follow them. That's the general assumption. But it's because they weren't built the right way, right? They were built the wrong way. So most founders document a bit too late, if we're truly honest, right? They usually start documenting when everything is already on fire and they're utilizing that document to rectify. Or they write instructions instead of outcomes. Or the SOP becomes a binder no one ever touches again. And I know that's a big fear for a lot of my brick and mortar founders. Most common is they skip decision points. So without decision trees, your team still has to guess throughout that SOP. And another big one is SOPs that haven't been tested with a new team member. So if a step only makes sense to the person who wrote it, it's not an SOP. It's a diary entry. A real SOP reduces thinking, not increases it. It eliminates friction. It produces the same outcome every single time, no matter who performs it. And in this workshop, we're going to fix every one of these gaps. So you walk away with an SOP that actually gets used and actually works. But I want you to understand, even if you have SOPs and you might be saying, Rakia, those SOPs haven't been working. I just wanted to note some points of why that's usually the case. So before we get into SOPs and delegation, I want to anchor us in a truth I say often because it shows up in a lot of growing businesses I touch. And it's that your systems don't break because you suddenly became successful. They're going to break because complexity increased and the business wasn't architected to hold it. So every new client or customer is going to add a step. Every new team member adds communication. Every new offer is going to add decisions. And if you don't document the how, your business is going to become dependent on memory, heroics, and, those moments of, I'll just do it myself. So delegation isn't hard because people are incapable. Delegation is hard because the business hasn't been made teachable yet. So today is where that's going to shift. So let me introduce you to Maya again, or reintroduce her, depending on how long you've been with us. So Maya represents almost every founder our team lead and our team lead and I meet. So Maya is brilliant. She's a brilliant founder. She's a hardworking founder. Her product that she's created and her business is gaining traction. She's winning on all fronts, but inside her business, she's drowning. She's drowning in undocumented work. She's onboarding manually, fixing mistakes, answering the same questions over and over, and being the only one who truly knows how things are supposed to get done. So, this is where most SOPs are born, in panic, in pressure, and in a moment when everything feels like it must be done now. But SOPs created in chaos tend to record the panic, not the process. So today, I want you to really think about learning to build SOPs from clarity, not crisis. So this is what Maya's business looks like internally, not the brand, not the pitch deck, not the revenue dashboard, the day-to-day reality. Work is swirling instead of flowing. Task gets stuck between people, steps live in someone's head, not in a system. And because nothing is documented, every workflow becomes a game of telephone. This is the invisible cost of not having SOPs, not just inefficiency, but instability. So when people can't see the path, they improvise. And when they improvise, quality becomes accidental. And when quality becomes accidental, delegation becomes dangerous. This is the point where Maya realizes I don't have a capacity problem, I have a clarity problem. So that's when growth arrives. This is what happens when Maya lands a big contract or experiences a spike in demand. It should be a moment of celebration, but instead, it exposes every gap she couldn't see before. Her team tries to help, but without SOPs, every handoff cracks the bridge a little more. So here's the insight. SOPs are not about being rigid, and they're not about bureaucracy. They are not about slowing creativity either. SOPs protect your business from cracking under pressure. They turn growth into something your business can carry, not collapse under. And when we think about this, right, systems are documented, systems are teachable, and systems are testable. If you're no longer scaling through heroics, you get to start being scalable. You get to start having a system that's documented, teachable, and testable. So you're scaling through architecture, not through hustle, right? So before we start building these SOPs and playbooks, I want to ground us in the same operating rhythm we learned last week, and that's the delivery intelligence loop. This loop matters because SOPs do not live in isolation. They sit inside your operational rhythm. So foundation is where your systems get structured, and delivery is where your team is going to execute that structure. And optimization is where those systems get smarter. Scale is where your systems start carrying more weight than you alone ever could, right? It starts doing more than you ever could manually. So SOPs and playbook allow this loop to function without depending on your memory, your presence, or your hustle. They are the connectors that help your business evolve instead of collapse when demand increases. So if your SOPs don't support this loop, if your standard operating procedures documented don't support this particular loop, they aren't supporting your scalability, right? So we want to focus on how to fix that. So this is the stage where we're focused on today, right? We're focused on foundation, the clarity and structure your team needs to execute without you. That's the key. So the truth around this is most SOPs fail because they documented task, not structure. A real standard operating procedure defines the exact steps, who owns each step, the tools that support it, the boundaries of capacity, and where quality is checked. Good SOPs remove confusion and they remove decision fatigue. And it also curates a happy environment, a happy culture within your startup. So the moment your team no longer has to guess, right, what good looks like, they can finally start delivering consistently. So this is why we really get to look at standard operating procedures as a foundational layer, because without that structure, growth doesn't really create efficiency. It's really that growth is just going to create chaos. So once your foundation is clear, we move into delivery. And this is where your SOP becomes a lived experience, not a document. So our foundation was us documenting it, and then delivery is us putting it into action. This is where execution is going to actually meet the customer experience. SOP isn't just an internal tool. It's meant to shape how the customer feels around your product, your service, or your brand. Your SOP should create a predictable rhythm, is how I like to think of it, right? That rhythm is how tasks move between team members, how communication flows, how quality gets confirmed, what happens if something goes wrong, what done actually means, right? It supports that predictable rhythm. Delivery is where your SOP proves its value. It's where it exposes its weaknesses as well. So if your team can't deliver the same quality every time across every customer, every project, every user, then what you have is effort, not a system. Okay, so we want to focus on building systems. So here's where I usually see my founders stop. And also, this is a stage where your SOP becomes intelligent. Optimization is the part of the loop where your system begins to learn, right? What steps create bottlenecks? Where handoffs slow down? Where are the handoffs slowing down at? What tasks are repetitive? What automation could give us our hours back? What data should we be capturing at each step? This is also where your playbook becomes powerful. So you want to think of your SOP as the step by step and your playbook as the decision logic, the why behind the what. So when you connect SOPs to data and feedback from customers, users, clients, right? And your system gets smarter every month with you taking in that data and optimizing, what you're going to see is that your business stops reacting and it starts adapting to its customer and its market opportunity. And then from there, we talk scale. So scale is not volume, scale is predictability. Scale from our point of view means that your team can execute without you. Your delivery quality will not dip in the process. Your handoffs are always clean between departments and team members. Your outcomes are always repeatable. And your systems can support more customers than your personal bandwidth ever could. So for delegation to actually work, your SOPs get to empower your team, not micromanage your team. A great SOP should make your newest team member feel beyond capable, and your most experienced team member should feel trusted with an SOP, affirmed even. That's the stage where SOPs kind of stop being checklists and they start becoming a culture driver. And when your systems work, your people thrive. And when your people thrive, your customers stay, right? And that's what we're building on. We're building on that customer staying and building. So when we think about delegation, we have to talk about something most founders completely skip, and that's your real operational capacity. you can't really you can't hand work off if you don't really understand the load you're handing off, right? You can't really hand your work over to someone if you don't understand the load of that work that you're handing over. So capacity isn't a feeling, it's not a guess, it's meant to be a formula. The formula I like to say is hours times cost times people per delivery. So this is the backbone of every good SOP, right? Because SOPs aren't meant to live in isolation. They're going to live inside your capacity. So if you don't know the limits of your team, you'll kind of document work that no one can actually perform because you're documenting work that immediately is over your team's capacity. So you'll end up handing someone a process that they don't have time and maybe even not support to execute well. So the goal here is to have an SOP that matches your capacity, or your handoff will fail, right? If you don't. So most founders don't build SOPs when they should. They build them when their glass is already overflowing. So when demand exceeds capacity, so four predictable things happen. Broken client experiences, workflow complexity is going to start skyrocketing, premature staffing decisions are going to take place, and you're going to start having some team burnout. So this is also when delegation becomes reactive. You need help, just hire someone, just hand it off. But handing off chaos doesn't fix chaos. It's going to multiply it. So that's why SOPs matter, not as documentation, but as operational relief valves. They reduce the overflow, they're going to stop the spill, and they're going to stabilize your team before you add more pressure to the system. So this slide is the reason SOPs are not optional, right? When you delegate without structure, you are going to end up paying a hidden tax. You're going to end up paying for lost customers, missed opportunities, or preventable burnout. So your team is going to become the bottleneck, and you're going to become the bottleneck. Revenue leaks are going to take place because quality is going to become inconsistent, and things are going to start looking bad because of that level of lack of delegation and lack of capacity. So the hopeful side to this is when SOPs are done well, your delivery stabilizes, your team accelerates, and your mental bandwidth is going to expand. So great SOPs don't just save time, they're meant to save money, energy, and reputation. So we want to start documenting before, right? Well, what I usually see people do is start documenting before they calculate, or they start building an SOP for a workflow they shouldn't exist. This is where most people go wrong. Or they start building SOPs for a workflow that isn't profitable or isn't necessary or shouldn't be automated, not delegated, or should be automated, not delegated. Systemization without calculation leads to busy work. Your steps should solve a capacity problem, not decorate it. And your SOP should remove friction, not memorialize it. So before you write your first step, you want to ask, is this task repeatable? Is this task high value or high waste? Should this task be automated? Should it be assigned, or should it be eliminated? And once you start knowing that, you start building an effective SOP. So this map is where delegation becomes intelligent instead of emotional. Capacity mapping helps you see where your workload is too high, where your team is overloaded, where resources are underutilized, and where your bottlenecks actually live. And here's the high insights for SOPs. You must document the tasks that live in the red zones first, because those are the tasks stealing the most hours. Those are the tasks creating the most mistakes. Those are usually the tasks preventing you from handing anything off. And capacity maps are going to tell you Here is the work that must be documented first, not the work that feels convenient, not the work that feels easy. So when your SOPs follow your capacity map, your delegation becomes strategic instead of stressful. Okay, so let's come back to Maya because she's the perfect example of how delegation problems don't show up as leadership issues, but they show up as operational reality. So remember, Maya hit her biggest milestone. She got 1,000 new users. Amazing news, right? Until she realized the only way those users could onboard was through her. Manual onboarding, manual emails, manual support, chaos. So this is the moment where every founder reaches the truth. You cannot delegate what you have not defined. And Maya wasn't drowning because she lacked effort. She was drowning because nothing in her workflow was documented. Nothing was repeatable. Nothing was handoff ready. Nothing was defined. So that's the exact moment we see most founders finally start to understand why delegation isn't just an activity, it's a part of infrastructure support. So step one of building a delegation-ready business is not writing SOPs. It's going to be mapping reality. Most founders guess how long things take. But delegation is not powered by guesses, it's going to be powered by truth. So Maya mapped every single task inside her onboarding flow. You're going to do the same thing. Every action, handoff, decision, approval, and data touch. And she discovered the real pattern. She didn't have a time problem. She had a task volume and decision complexity problem. So this is why capacity mapping matters. It's meant to expose the invisible load no one talks about. The moment you see the real task inventory, you can finally define what should be automated, delegated, eliminated, or tightened into a system. So this is the foundation of creating SOPs that actually kind of work. So once Maya saw the truth, right, the next step was obvious. She automated everything that repeated, not the emotional work, not the customer care moments, not the judgment calls. She automated the friction, repetitive questions, repetitive emails, repetitive data entry, repetitive confirmations. If it happens the same way every time, it should never drain human hours. So automation is not code, it's compassionate. It's meant to free your team so humans can focus on connection, quality, and care on behalf of customers. So this is where we want to see you and Maya go from where we're not reacting, but we're designing. Okay, great. So now we're going to build the system for that team. We're going to build the system that our future team will use. Now, SOPs are not documents, remember. SOPs are decision intelligence. They tell your team what to do, how to do it, why it matters, what quality looks like, and what success is measured by. And then we layer in the 30, 60, 90 framework. First, 30 days, learn. New team members absorb the workflow exactly as designed. That's our first 30 days of learn. Our next 30 days after that is contribute. So now we want to see that they begin improving steps, that they started tightening up language, and they started noticing inefficiencies within your playbooks. And then their final 30 days, they start to lead. They take ownership of outcomes, not just tasks. So this is how you start to scale people. This is how you start to scale yourself. This is how you make your decision-making teachable. So SOPs don't replace you, they multiply your impact. This is the transformation I want to see for every founder, especially a founder truly chasing their dreams. Okay. So once we map those tasks, once we automate the repeatables and we codify delivery into SOPs, we're going to be looking at a team that we can trust. We're going to be looking at a team that we now can move from scramble to system, from firefighting to flow, to intuition to intelligence, which is one of my favorite shifts, and what is founder relevant to team powered. And this is really the moment that businesses stop depending on presence and they start depending on systems. It's when delegation starts becoming natural, right? Where quality becomes repeatable, where teams start operating with confidence instead of questions. So this is how you build a business that is bigger than bandwidth. All right. So now we transition into the core of today's workshop, and that's the anatomy of a delegation-ready SOP. Not an SOP that looks pretty, okay? Not an SOP that sits in a folder unused or a document of tasks that gets ignored. We want to talk about a delegation-ready SOP, and it's one that makes someone else successful without you being in the room. So to accomplish that, there are 7 non-negotiable parts. First is identify the workflow, not the task. So most people document what they do, not how the work flows. Delegation collapses when the task isn't seen in context, okay? And then from there, we define the outcome. What does done look like? And I actually like to challenge that and say, well, what does successfully done look like? And if successfully done only lives in your head, your SOP is already broken or non-existent, right? So we want to refine that. Third is map the steps. You want to create clear, simple, honest steps, not inflated versions of reality, right? So that doesn't look like mop the floor from top to bottom with the best cleaning products in the world. That wasn't clear, that wasn't simple, and it wasn't honest. And it was full of inflated versions of reality. So we want to map steps that don't do that. Fourth is add decision points. So this is the part most SOPs miss. It's a good SOP. If a good SOP tells someone how to think, not just what to click, okay? Fifth to that is add quality gates, the checkpoints that guarantees consistency. Then we're going to document data requirements. So that's information in defines information out. No ambiguity. And then finally, 7 to that is we test with the newest team member. So if your newest person can follow it silently, you've nailed it. If they can't, we're meant to refine. So every growth stage is meant to require a different operational rhythm. But this structure stays the same even as that rhythm changes. So step 1 is identify the flow, right? So not the task, the flow. So what founders make this, most founders kind of make the same mistake here where they start documenting actions without documenting the path that work takes. So before you write a single instruction, you're going to want to ask what triggers this workflow? What completes it? Where do the handoffs happen? Where do people typically get stuck? The moment you map the workflow visually, friction becomes obvious there. So what was invisible is going to suddenly start becoming a little bit more structured. This is also where you start to see the places automation and AI or a VA can support the team. And the reason you're going to see that is because bottlenecks aren't guesses, right? They're going to be very visible to you here. Step 2 is define the outcome. So this is one step alone this one step alone can eliminate about 80% of back and forth questions. So you want to define what does done successfully. What does done successfully look like? What is the measurable standard? And if a customer receives this, how would they describe the experience? So most SOPs fail here because they describe the task but not the result. Delegation collapses when someone follows the steps, and where most SOPs fail. So because they described a task but not the result really. So great leaders don't really just teach tasks, they're going to teach standards. And when your team knows what excellence looks like, they can make smarter decisions without you. So step 3, map the steps. So this is where most SOPs start, but it should actually be step 3. You want to list the micro steps exactly as they happen, not the ideal version, not the polished version, the real version, because you can't optimize what you're pretending you do. So this is also where you identify repeatable patterns. Patterns are what automation runs on. So patterns are what delegation thrives on. So map your steps honestly. You tighten those steps later after we've done some testing. Now, this step is the game changer for me. Decision points are where most SOPs and most handoffs break. So a team member may follow the steps perfectly, but the moment they hit a fork in the road, they freeze, or worse, they guess. So you want to ask, what decisions does the team member need to make in this moment? What criteria guide should guide each decision? What data informs the choice? So decision trees turn your judgment into a teachable intelligence. So this is where your team starts to scale you, right? Not just your task, but it starts to scale you in the company. Now, step 5 is add quality gates to that decision making. So quality gates protect consistency, especially as you grow. So quality gates should define what gets checked, what makes it correct, what triggers a redo, and when to escalate to you or to someone else. So quality gates are not policing, they're protection. So they're the guardrails that are meant to prevent small errors from becoming reputational problems. So teams perform better when excellence is clearly defined and easy to follow. We know that, right? So this is where your SOP gets to begin to feel like a system, not a checklist. Once your steps, decisions, and quality gates are clear, now we get to layer in tools and data flow. So this is the part that turns your SOP from instructions into a real, usable operational system. So for every step, we want to ask, what tools support this? What templates are needed? What fields have to be required so nothing gets skipped? What data needs to flow into the next step? What needs to be visible for reporting? So most SOPs fail here because they describe the work, but they don't connect it to the tools that actually execute the work. So a delegation-ready SOP doesn't just tell someone what to do. It puts everything they need within reach. So if someone has to leave the document to find a link or a file or instructions stored somewhere else, the SOP is not complete yet. Now, this is my favorite, and honestly, the most humbling step. Once your SOP is done, it's actually not done at all. You hand it to the newest person on your team or the person least familiar with this workflow that you're implementing, and you ask them to run it out loud, run it exactly as it's written. You aren't meant to help, you just watch. If they stop, the SOP is incomplete. If they ask a question, a step is missing. If they hesitate, the instructions aren't clear enough. This is what we call silent execution. So when someone can complete the workflow without needing you, without guessing, and without gaps, only then is your SOP truly delegation ready. So here's a distinction most teams miss. An SOP teaches what to do. A playbook teaches how to think. SOPs equal steps. Playbook equals decisions. So you need both if you want to delegate confidently. A team member can follow steps perfectly and still get the wrong outcome if they don't understand why a decision was made. So your SOP makes the work repeatable. Your playbook makes the judgment repeatable. So this is how you scale yourself, by making both your actions and your decisions teachable. So this is the exact process we use inside of Copper and Vine with our founders when we teach them how to hand off work without anxiety or micromanagement. So first is pre-brief. You want to walk your team member through the purpose, the outcome, and where this fits in the larger system. I liken this to inspire. Your pre-brief should inspire or ignite your team member. Second is read through. They read through the SOP back to you out loud. They ensure clarity, no assumptions. Third is a shadow run. They do the workflow while you quietly observe. You're not here to jump in, you're just here to see where the SOP still has friction. 4 is silent run. They do it again, this time completely independently. No questions, no coaching. This is the moment you know if the SOP truly works. 5 is quality check. They self-score using your quality gate criteria. And then you review against the same criteria. This is how you build alignment and eliminate guesswork. So when you follow this handoff method, delegation is going to stop feeling risky, and it's going to actually start feeling like a measurable, manageable system. And it's meant to take you from doing the work to designing how the work gets done. So I want to close kind of with some numbers here to remind us, to presence us, because documentation is great, but it's not the goal, right? High levels of performance is the goal. So these are our 3 metrics we want to think about when we talk about delegation-ready systems. We want them to connect back to activation rate. Our activation rate tells us whether our workflow actually lands with our team, right? If people can really follow the SOP and get the outcome on the first try, then we know our activation rate is going to rise. A 25% improvement in activation correlates with a 35% gain in predictable output. That's how powerful clarity is, okay? Second to that is utilization. So this is where your team's operational temperature, too low and you're under leveraging your systems, too high and you're burning people out. So when your SOPs are clean and your handoffs are tight, your team lives in that healthy 80 to 85% zone. We talked about that last week. From there, we got our net revenue retention, our NRR. This one surprises people because NRR improves when delivery becomes consistent, because customers stay longer and they expand faster, and trust grows because your service feels predictable. These metrics tell a simple truth. Documented systems don't just organize your business, they protect your revenue, your people, and your customer experience. So this is the mindset that separates founders who constantly chase their business from founders who lead their business. The smartest founders don't build systems for the size of their company today. They're going to be building their systems for a company that's 1.5 minimum times larger than where they are right now. So if you have 5 clients, your SOP should be ready for 8. And if you manage 3 team members, Your playbook should support 5. If you deliver 20 projects a month, your workflow should be structured for 30. Why? Because growth rarely asks for permission. It's just going to show up and you get to be ready for it. By the time you fix a system, growth has already outpaced it. Okay. We learned that from Maya. Maya learned that the hard way, right? Her systems were built for survival, not scale. And when 1,000 users landed, everything cracked at once, right? So your next stage requires you to think differently. You're not going to build for demand, you're going to build for readiness. This is the real purpose of SOPs and playbooks, to prepare your business for the version of you that's coming, not the version you're trying to survive today. So you have the tools, you have the blueprint, and now you have the mindset to stay ahead of your growth curve. All right, everything we covered today becomes real when you put it into motion. So your next step is to complete the Delegation-Ready SOP worksheet. Inside the QR code, you're going to get a guided template to build your SOP and your playbook. You're going to get a handoff checklist. You're going to get a silent execution test script and a structure for embedding quality gates and decision points. So this worksheet is designed to make your work teachable, so your system becomes transferable, not just documented. So if you complete this, you will walk into next week's session with a delegation-ready asset you can immediately hand to a VA, a contractor, or a team member. So this is how you scale yourself without losing quality. So as we close, I want to leave you with 4 anchors that will serve you in every stage of growth. You scale when your decisions become teachable. This is the difference between effort and leverage. SOPs do not replace you, they multiply you. You're not documenting to disappear. You're documenting to become scalable. Document before you delegate. So if you hand off chaos, you multiply chaos. If you hand off clarity, you multiply excellence. And finally, automate the repeatable, humanize the relational. Automation protects your time. Human interaction protects your brand. So you want to hold on to these. And I hope that they'll help you build with a lot of intention. So if today made you realize you need stronger systems or cleaner workflows or support architecting your next level of growth, this is the work Copper and Vine does every single day. So we build operational systems that scale with you. So not through hustle or guesswork or clarity, but with clarity, structure, and compliance. So if you're ready to build responsibly, if you're ready to strengthen your infrastructure or to prepare your company for real scale, you can just scan that QR code. We'd love to explore how to support you in your next stage. All right. So next week is one of the most exciting in the whole series, in my opinion, because we are talking about the AI co-pilot, the AI co-pilot workshop. This is where we're going to take everything you've built, your workflow, your SOPs, your customer journey, and elevate it with intelligent automation. We'll teach you how to build an AI assistant for your business that knows your systems, your tone, and your standards. And we're going to do it so your team and you has the support it needs and you finally get back your time. So if today was about documenting the work, next week is about augmenting it. I look forward to seeing you there. All right, as always, I want to leave you with this truth. You have permission to lead a big idea. You have permission to build systems that support your brilliance, not drain you. You have permission to grow in a way that is ethical and human and sustainable and in alignment with your values. Scaling isn't about becoming someone new. It's about building an infrastructure strong enough to carry the person and vision you already are. You are allowed to build something extraordinary. Okay. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your curiosity and your commitment to building better. You showed up for your idea and yourself and your vision and for the people your work will impact one day. So until next week, go build with intention, go delegate with confidence, and most of all, go be great. I'm Rakia Finley. It was really great teaching you today, and I'll see you next week.